The dust hung thick in the afternoon air as the wagon rolled into Fortune Creek, its wooden wheels creaking against the dry earth. Inside, beneath a coarse burlap sack that scratched against her skin with every bump in the road, Elena tried to steady her breathing. She could hear the murmur of voices growing louder, the shuffle of boots on wooden planks, the occasional burst of raucous laughter that made her stomach turn. She had been traveling for 3 days like this, hidden away like cargo, her wrists bound loosely enough not to leave marks but tight enough to remind her of her circumstances. The women who ran the orphanage back east had promised her a new life out west, a chance at a fresh start after the fire that had taken her family. What they hadn't mentioned was that fresh starts came with a price, and that price was her dignity. The wagon lurched to a stop, and Elena felt rough hands grip her arms, pulling her upright. Her legs had gone numb from sitting, and she stumbled as they guided her down onto what felt like a raised platform. The wood was warm beneath her bare feet, heated by hours of relentless sun. "Gentlemen, gentlemen," a voice boomed near her ear, making her flinch. "We have here a fine specimen for your consideration. Young, healthy, and I'm told she can cook, clean, and sew with the best of them. What am I bid for this lovely lady?" Elena's cheeks burned beneath the sack. She had known this moment was coming, had been warned by the other girls on the journey, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of standing before a crowd of strangers while men assessed her value like livestock. "Can we see her face?" someone called out from the crowd. "All in good time, all in good time," the auctioneer replied smoothly. "First, let's establish that we have serious buyers here. Do I hear $50? Silence. Elena's heart sank. Even with her face hidden, no one wanted her. "Come now, gentlemen, $40. She's strong, she'll make a fine wife for any man willing to take a chance." "30, a gruff voice offered, followed by snickering. "$30, we have $30. Do I hear 35? Elena wanted to disappear, to sink through the wooden platform and into the earth itself. This was worse than the orphanage, worse than the streets she'd nearly ended up on after the fire. At least there, she had maintained some shred of dignity. The bidding crawled upward in reluctant increments. $40, $45, each increase felt like another piece of her humanity being chipped away. She tried to remember her mother's face, her father's laugh, the way her little brother used to chase fireflies in the summer evenings. Those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now, to a girl who had died in that fire along with her family. $50, someone said, sounding bored. $50, we have $50. Going once. $200. The voice cut through the proceedings like a knife, clear and firm and utterly unexpected. The crowd fell silent, and Elena felt the shift in atmosphere even through her shrouded vision. "I'm sorry, sir, did you say $200? The voice repeated. It was a man's voice, deeper than the others, with a quiet authority that didn't need to shout to be heard. "And I'll take her sight unseen. Remove the sack, give her some water, and bring her down from there with dignity." "Now see here," the auctioneer sputtered, "that's not how we conduct." "I don't care how you conduct your business," the man interrupted, his tone hardening. "That's a human being you have up there, not a horse. $200 is more than you'll get from anyone else here, and we both know it. Take it, or I walk away and encourage every other man here to do the same." Elena heard footsteps approaching the platform, heavy boots that moved with purpose. The auctioneer was speaking rapidly, something about procedures and propriety, but the words seemed to fade into background noise. Then she felt different hands on the sack, gentler hands, and a voice close to her ear. "I'm going to remove this now, ma'am. I apologize for what you've endured. My name is James Calloway, and I give you my word that you're safe now." The burlap was lifted away, and Elena blinked against the sudden brightness. Her eyes took a moment to adjust, and when they did, she found herself looking at a man who seemed entirely out of place in the rough frontier town. He was tall, with sun-darkened skin and dark hair that fell past his collar. His eyes were gray, like storm clouds, and they held something she hadn't expected to see: respect. He held out a canteen, and she took it with shaking hands, drinking deeply while trying to orient herself to her surroundings. They were in the town square, such as it was, surrounded by a collection of weathered buildings and curious onlookers. The men in the crowd looked disappointed, some angry, while others simply shrugged and wandered off to whatever other entertainment the day might offer. James Calloway turned to the auctioneer, pulling out a leather wallet. "I believe we have a transaction to complete." "Well, yes, but there are papers to sign, arrangements to be made." "I'll marry her today," James said flatly. "Right now, if there's a minister in this town. That's the arrangement. She'll be my wife, not my property. Are we clear?" The auctioneer's face reddened. "That's highly irregular. So is auctioning women with sacks on their heads, but that didn't seem to trouble you." James counted out bills with deliberate precision. $200, as agreed. "Now, where's the minister?" Elena watched this exchange in a daze, unsure whether she had tumbled into a dream or a different kind of nightmare. This man, this stranger, had just purchased her and was now insisting on marrying her immediately. She should have been terrified, but something in his demeanor, in the way he had lifted the sack with such care, in the quiet fury in his voice when he spoke to the auctioneer, made her think that perhaps this wasn't the worst possible outcome. "There's a preacher at the church on the north end of town," someone in the crowd offered. "Reverend Thompson. He'll marry you, though he won't be happy about the circumstances." James nodded, then turned to Elena. For the first time since removing the sack, he looked directly at her, and she saw a flicker of something soft in those gray eyes. "I know this isn't what you imagined for your life, and I know you have no reason to trust me. But I'm offering you a choice right now. You can come with me, marry me, and I swear on my parents' graves that I will treat you with respect and kindness. Or I can give you money enough to start over somewhere else, and you'll never see me again. But you need to decide quickly, before someone else gets ideas." Elena looked around at the faces in the crowd, at the town that seemed to hold nothing but hardship and hard men, and then back at James Calloway. She thought about the alternatives, about what might happen if she refused his offer. She thought about the orphanage she could never return to, the life she had lost, and the uncertain future that stretched before her like an endless prairie. "Why?" she asked, her voice rough from disuse and dust. "Why would you do this?" His jaw tightened. "Because my sister was sold like this in Texas 3 years ago. I've been looking for her ever since, and I haven't found her. But I swore that if I ever witnessed something like this again, I would stop it if I could. So here we are." There was truth in his words, raw and painful, and Elena recognized the weight of loss in his eyes because she carried the same weight herself. Two strangers, both marked by tragedy, standing in a dusty town square and making a decision that would alter the course of both their lives. "I'll marry you," she said quietly. "And thank you." The walk to the church was silent. James untied her wrists, offered her his arm, and led her through the streets while curious eyes followed their progress. Elena was acutely aware of her appearance, of the stained dress she'd been wearing for days, the tangled state of her hair, the dust that covered her from head to toe. But James didn't seem to notice her care. He walked with steady purpose, his hand resting lightly over hers on his arm, a protective gesture that felt genuine rather than possessive. Reverend Thompson was indeed unhappy about the circumstances, but when James explained the situation and Elena confirmed that she was entering the marriage willingly, the older man's expression softened. They stood in the small church with its rough-hewn pews and simple altar, and spoke vows that felt both surreal and strangely binding. When James slipped a plain silver band onto her finger, Elena wondered where he had gotten it, whether it had belonged to someone else, what story it carried. "You may kiss the bride," Reverend Thompson said, but James simply nodded to Elena, a gesture of acknowledgement rather than claiming. They were married. Outside the church, James had a horse waiting, a sturdy bay mare with kind eyes. He helped Elena mount, then swung up behind her. "My ranch is about an hour's ride from here. It's not much, but it's peaceful. You'll have your own room, time to recover from all this. We can figure out the rest as we go." As they rode out of Fortune Creek, Elena allowed herself to lean back slightly against James's chest. She felt the steady rhythm of his breathing, the solid warmth of him, and for the first time in months, she felt something that might have been the beginning of safety. The landscape opened up before them, endless sky meeting endless land, and she thought that perhaps in this vast space, there might be room enough for two broken people to heal. The ranch, when they reached it, was indeed modest. A sturdy log cabin, a barn, corrals, and pastures stretching toward distant hills. It was isolated but not lonely, quiet but not oppressive. James helped her down from the horse and showed her inside, pointing out a small bedroom with a real bed, clean linens, and a window that looked out over the prairie. "Take whatever time you need," he said from the doorway. "There's water for washing, clothes that belong to my mother in the trunk if you want something clean. I'll be outside tending to the animals. Come out when you're ready, or don't. No expectations, Elena. We'll make this work however we need to." He left her then, closing the door softly, and Elena sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the tears she'd been holding back finally spill over. She cried for her lost family, for the girl she used to be, for the terrifying hours beneath that burlap sack. But somewhere in those tears was also relief, and maybe, just maybe, the faintest glimmer of hope. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. And in that moment, Elena understood that endings and beginnings were sometimes the same thing, that life had a way of surprising you just when you thought all the surprises had been used up. She had been auctioned off with a sack on her head, but a cowboy had said he would marry her that day, and somehow, improbably, that had changed everything.